Hi, and welcome to Long Live the Queen, where we talk about the women who made history. And by we, I mean the royal we, because it's just me. Today, we're going to talk about Claude, Duchess of Brittany and Queen of France. In the Golden Heart of France, on October 13, 1499, a child was born into the resplendent, yet perilous world of royalty. Princess Claude, delicate as the autumn leaves that fell outside the chateau, entered the stage of history as the daughter of King Louis XII, a monarch whose heart ached for a son to secure his lineage. The king, a man of ambition and resolve, guys, he was a little mean, ruled France teetering on the edge of dynastic uncertainty. His queen, Anne, Duchess of Brittany and Queen of France, was a woman of iron will, her body a battleground for the hopes of a nation. At 22, Queen Anne had endured the crucible of at least 7 pregnancies, each one a gamble with fate. Yet of all her labors, only Claude, a girl, had survived the perilous journey from womb to world. 3 brothers, each a fleeting promise of a male heir, had slipped into eternity before drawing breath, leaving Claude as the sole beacon of her mother's legacy. A younger sister, Princess Renee, born 10 years Claude's junior, would later join her, but for now, Claude stood alone. The court buzzed with whispers of succession, for Louis XII's lack of a son cast a long, long shadow. Queen Anne, her body worn by the relentless demands of childbearing, faced a tragic end in January 1514. At just 36, her frame, exhausted by the trials of pregnancy, succumbed. Officially, she died of a kidney stone attack, though some murmured of a deeper toll exacted by her ceaseless efforts to produce an heir. Claude, a mere 14 years old, stood by her mother's coffin, her young heart heavy with grief. Yet from this loss she inherited a mantle of power, the Duchy of Brittany. A teenage duchess, Claude now had a title that made her one of the most coveted prizes in the Game of Thrones. Her father, King Louis, wasted no time. A duchess of such wealth and influence could not remain unwed. His choice fell upon Francis, Count of Angoulême, the first Prince of the Blood, a charismatic, ambitious young man whose claim to the throne would solidify if Louis failed to produce a son. At 14, Claude was wed to the 19-year-old Francis in a ceremony that bound their fates to the future of France. The young couple, now poised in the wings of the royal stage, waited to see if Louis would yet sire a male heir to displace them. Undeterred by age or grief, sought a new bride to chase his dream of a son. An alliance was struck across the Channel. On October 9, 1514, just 9 months after Anne's death and 5 months after Claude's marriage, 52-year-old Louis wed the radiant 18-year-old Princess Mary of England. Claude's new stepmother, barely 3.5 years her senior, brought a spark of youth to the aging court. The halls of the palace hummed with anticipation. Would this vibrant England rose deliver the son Louis so desperately craved? Fate had other plans. While the court watched Mary Tudor for signs of pregnancy, it was Claude, now 15, who found herself with child. Her husband Francis, eager to cement his place, had wasted no time. Meanwhile, Louis's health faltered. On the 1st of January, 1515, just 2 months after his marriage to Mary Tudor, the king succumbed, his body ravaged by gout, though some whispered that his exertions with the teenage bride had hastened his end. Ew. At 52, Louis XII was dead. Leaving no male heir, the crown passed to Francis, the first Prince of the Blood, and his son-in-law. And Claude, the pregnant 15-year-old duchess, became also the Queen of France. The king is dead. Long live the king. Francis I, bold, brash, he ascended the throne, and Claude, his young queen, stood at his side, her womb carrying the future of the dynasty. In a court ablaze with ambition and artistry, Queen Claude of France shone as a quiet constellation, her gentle spirit a stark contrast to the flamboyant reign of her husband, King Francis I. Known for her piety, kindness, and unassuming grace, Claude was a beloved figure. Her soft voice and warm smile endearing nobles and commoners alike. Despite her frail health, marred by scoliosis and the relentless toll of 7 pregnancies, she carried herself with serene dignity, her days filled with prayer, charity, and devotion to her children. The court, often a cauldron of intrigue, found in Claude a rare purity, a queen who preferred the solace of her chapel to the glitter of banquets, her humility a beacon in a world of vanity. While Queen Claude bore the weight of the crown and the cradle, her husband, King Francis I, danced through the glittering halls of the French court, a man of boundless charm with a smile that could sway nobles and artists alike. Francis was the sun around which the Renaissance court revolved. Yet for all his brilliance, he cast a long shadow over his gentle queen. His eyes, ever restless, wandered to the ladies of the court, mistresses who sparkled like jewels in his orbit, their laughter a stark contrast to Claude's quiet devotion. Francis' infidelities were no secret. The court buzzed with tales of his dalliances, from the radiant Françoise de Foix, whose elegance rivaled the queen's, to other beauties who caught his fancy. These women, adorned in silk and ambition, shared his bed and his confidences, while Claude, frail and often pregnant, tended her duties in the nursery and the chapel. Her scoliosis-curved frame ached under the strain of childbirth, yet Francis barely lingered by her side, his attention consumed by tournaments, arts, and the pursuit of pleasure. The king's neglect was not cruel in intent, but it was careless, a wound deepened by his absence during Claude's most vulnerable moments. Whispers in the palace spoke of nights when Claude, alone in her chambers, would hear the distant music of banquets where Francis reveled with his latest paramour. Her ladies, loyal and discreet, shielded her from the worst gossip, but Claude's heart was not blind. She bore her husband's betrayals with the same grace that carried her through 7 pregnancies, her prayers a shield against the pain of a marriage more dynastic than devoted. Yet in her quiet strength, Claude outshone the fleeting stars of Francis's court, her love for her children and her kingdom a legacy no mistress could eclipse. Francis, Count of Angoulême, Claude's dashing, art-loving husband, was the rock star at French court. Think charisma for days, a swagger that could charm the crown jewels off a queen, and a libido that just wouldn't quit. The man was a Renaissance rom-com, minus the rom for poor Claude. While our good queen was busy praying, birthing heirs, and keeping Francis' dynastic dreams alive, Francis was out there turning the court into his personal dating show. Let's talk about the ladies who stole his heart, and maybe a few other things, while Claude held down the fort at home. First, the star of Francis's side-piece saga, Françoise de Foix, the belle of the ball, who had the court buzzing louder than a beehive at a flower festival. This woman was no shrinking violet. She was witty, gorgeous, and had a knack for keeping Francis wrapped around her jeweled finger. When Claude was knee-deep in diapers and dynasty building, Françoise was the king's not-so-secret muse. Whispers in the halls of Fontainebleau paired her as a rival to Claude herself. Silk swishing, eyes sparkling, and probably a few late-night strategy sessions with His Majesty. The court didn't just gossip. They practically published newsletters about it. Françoise wasn't just a fling. She held Francis's attention for nearly a decade, which for a man with the attention span of a golden retriever in a room full of squirrels was no small feat. But Françoise wasn't the only one. Francis had a whole constellation of courtly crushes, whose names history half forgot, but whose presence kept the palace rumor mill churning. These women weren't just arm candy. They were power players, trading charm for influence, whispering in the king's ear while Claude was off naming plums or tending to babies. And let's not forget the Boleyn sisters, Mary and Anne, who were floating around the French court during their teenage years. Mary, in particular, caught Francis's eye. Rumor has it he called her his English mare, which, rude, but also classic Francis. She was called his English mare because he said he rode her so well. Francis was kind of a fuckboy. Whether Anne got in on the action is debatable, but she was definitely taking notes for her future star turn across the channel. Now, don't get it twisted. Francis wasn't the mustache-twirling villain. He loved arts, threw epic parties, and basically invented the Renaissance glow-up. But his devotion to Claude? Let's just say it was more dynastic duty than ride or die. While Claude was waddling through her 7th pregnancy, Francis was off jousting, flirting, or commissioning another Leonardo da Vinci masterpiece. The man could multitask, but fidelity wasn't on the to-do list. Claude, the ever-saint, didn't rage or throw goblets. She just kept on being the good queen, her faith and her kids her anchor in a court where her husband's heart was playing hide-and-seek. The kicker? Claude knew. She knew all along. Those late-night banquets where Francis was toasting his latest flame, she would have heard some of the tea going around court. Back in the 1500s, French court was a playground of passion, but it wasn't exactly handing out safe-sex pamphlets. Syphilis, the uninvited guest of the Renaissance, was crashing parties across Europe. And, like King Francis, whose bed was busier than the Paris market, was prime real estate for such a scandal. Known as the French disease to the Italians, and the Italian disease to the French, syphilis was the talk of the town, leaving its mark, literally, on nobles who weren't exactly shy about their conquests. Francis, with his parade of paramours, was right in the crosshairs of these rumors. The court's chroniclers didn't exactly keep medical charts, but they did love to gossip, and some hinted that the king's boundless energy might have come with a hidden cost. Now let's be clear, there's no smoking gun, or should I say no telltale lesion, in the historical record to confirm Francis had an STI. Medical knowledge back then was more guess and pray than diagnose and treat, and symptoms like fevers or rashes could have been chalked up to anything from bad wine to divine punishment. But the whispers persisted. Francis's relentless romancing, from courtly beauties to the occasional visiting noblewoman like Mary Boleyn, raised eyebrows and questions. If he did catch something, treatments of the day, like mercury baths, that was as likely to poison you as cure you, weren't exactly a spa day. Some historians even speculate his later health issues, like the abscesses and fevers that plagued him by his 40s, might have been linked to something more than just hard living. Syphilis could linger like an unwelcome courtier, and Francis's lifestyle screamed high risk. Poor Queen Claude, our gentle heroine, was likely caught in the crossfire. Faithful and frail, she was churning out heirs like a royal assembly line, her body battered by 7 pregnancies and scoliosis. If Francis brought home an STI, it could have added another layer of strain to her already fragile health, though there's no record of her complaining. The court's rumor mill spared Claude the worst of the spotlight, but imagine her praying in the chapel while Francis was off patronizing the arts with his latest fling. Her ladies-in-waiting probably had to fan away the gossip clouds just to keep her sane. Yet Claude, ever the bonne reine, kept her head high, her love for her kids and kingdom outshining any scandal Francis may create. Yet whispers swirled through the corridors of the Renaissance court, faint but persistent, about the queen's delicate nature. Some modern scholars, peering through the lens of history, have speculated that Claude's physical frailties, her gentle demeanor, and certain described features, perhaps a softness in her face, or a simplicity in her manner, might suggest Down syndrome. No definitive evidence supports this theory, for the medical understanding of the time could not name such a condition, and the portraits of Claude, stylized as they were, offer no clear clues. Her scoliosis, inherited from her mother, Anne of Brittany, and the strain of her pregnancies could account for her fragility. Yet the possibility lingers like a shadow, adding a layer of mystery to her story. If true, it would cast Claude's resilience in an even more remarkable light, a queen who bore the weight of a crown and a dynasty while navigating a world that could not understand her unique challenges. Claude's reputation, however, needed no speculation to shine. To her people, she was La Bonne Reine, the good queen, whose kindness outlasted her brief life. Her legacy sweetened by the plum named Reine Claude in her honor. Reine Claude in English, meaning Queen Claude. Am I the only one hearing Rain Cloud? Rain Cloud. Rain Cloud. I'm just saying it sounds different in English. It spoke of a woman whose quiet strength and tender heart left an incredible mark on France, even as her body faltered under the burdens of duty. In August 1515, Claude gave birth to a daughter, Princess Louise, named for Francis's mother, Louise of Savoy, a formidable figure who loomed large over the court. Check out her episode. But a girl, however cherished, could not quell the kingdom's hunger for a male heir. France's old wound, the lack of sons, festered still. Claude, her body barely recovered, was pregnant again within 5 months. On October 23, 1516, she bore another daughter, Princess Charlotte, likely named in homage to Francis's late father, Charles, Count of Angoulême. The court's disappointment was palpable. 2 daughters in 14 months, but no prince. Undaunted, Claude was pregnant again by mid-1517, her young body a vessel for the monarchy's hopes. On February 28, 1518, the bells of France rang out in triumph. A son, Prince Francis, named for his father, was born. At 18, Claude was now the mother of 3 royal children, 2-year-old Louise, 1-year-old Charlotte, and newborn Prince Francis. The court's relief was short-lived, for a spare was needed to secure the line. 4 months later, Claude was pregnant once more. In September 1518, she carried her 4th child, but tragedy struck. 3-year-old Princess Louise died, likely of a childhood ailment. The loss struck a blow to Francis's mother, Louise of Savoy, who had seen her namesake slip away. 6 months later, in March 1519, Claude delivered another son, Prince Henri, a spare to the heir, ensuring the Valois line's continuity. Among Claude's ladies during this birth was a striking 19-year-old named Diane de Poitiers, whose elegance and poise hinted a future role far greater than mere attendant. Her presence was a quiet note in the symphony of Claude's life, one that would later resound through history. Spoiler alert, Diane de Poitiers became the mistress of King Henri, whose birth she was at. She literally watched him be born. That's weird when you can say to your boyfriend, like, remember that day you were born? I do. Weird. Claude's pregnancies continued unabated. By September 1519, when Prince Henri was just 6 months old, she was expecting again. In the midst of this, Francis, now a king in his prime, sought to cement his legacy not only through heirs but through diplomacy. In June 1520, he orchestrated a grand spectacle, the Field of Cloth of Gold in Calais, a dazzling summit to forge peace with his rival, King Henry VIII of England. Claude was 7 months pregnant and accompanied her husband, her presence a quiet counterpoint to the ostentatious display of wealth and power. Henry VIII arrived with his queen, Catherine of Aragon, and their retinue. In their retinue were 2 sisters, Mary and Anne Boleyn, who had lingered in France since Mary Tudor's queenship. At 20 and 19, respectively, the Boleyn sisters were poised to leave their mark on history. At this summit, Claude's 2-year-old son, Prince Francis, was betrothed to Henry VIII's 4-year-old daughter, Princess Mary, a fragile thread of alliance woven amid the pageantry. But the peace was as fleeting as the golden tents that adorned the fields. English-French rivalry soon unraveled the agreement. 2 months later, in August 1520, Claude gave birth to a daughter, Princess Madeleine, a frail child sent to the warmer climate of the Loire Valley to be raised by her aunt, Marguerite, Francis's sister, alongside her equally delicate sister Charlotte. Claude remained with her husband and sons, her body once again pressed into service. By April 1521, she was pregnant yet again. On the 22nd of January, 1522, Claude, now 22, welcomed another son, Prince Charles, named perhaps for Francis's late father. A second spare strengthened the dynasty, but Claude's health, battered by relentless pregnancies, began to falter. Still, within 9 months, she was pregnant once more. On June 5, 1523, she bore a daughter, Princess Marguerite, likely named for her aunt, who continued to nurture Claude's frail daughters in the Loire Valley. Claude's body, pushed beyond endurance, began to betray her. Whether she fell pregnant again is uncertain, but her health crumbled under the weight of at least 7 pregnancies in 8 years. On June 26, 1524, at the tender age of 24, Queen Claude died. Some whispered of miscarriage or stillbirth, others of a body simply worn out by the demands of queenship. Her death cast a shadow over court, leaving behind a legacy of 6 children and a husband whose reign would burn brightly but recklessly. Claude was survived by her children, 7-year-old Charlotte, who followed her mother to the grave just a month later, her frail health finally overcome. 6-year-old Prince Francis, destined to be a hostage in his father's wars. 5-year-old Prince Henri, who would also face the same captivity as his brother. 3-year-old Madeleine, who would briefly reign as Queen of Scots. 2-year-old Prince Charles, forever his father's favorite, and 1-year-old Marguerite, who would live a long life as the Duchess of Berry and Savoy. King Francis, a man of charm and chaos, carried on, his court a whirlwind of ambition, intrigue, and excess. Claude, the quiet queen, had fulfilled her duty to France, her body a sacrifice to the crown, her story woven in the tapestry of the Renaissance. It remains a testament to her fleeting glory and enduring cost of royalty. You can share your thoughts with me at longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com. Slide into my DMs on Facebook or Instagram at Long Live the Queen Podcast, or join the Royal Court on Patreon. The link is in the show description. On Fridays, we have book club. Long live to all the queens out there. And until next time, bye.
Thanks for listening.